Okay guys, so fun one today. Check this out. I can hit the encrypt button here and it's going to encrypt that field, and only the people with the encryption key on their computer can decrypt it. I can scroll through the records and encrypt the ones I want to encrypt or decrypt the ones I want to decrypt, and I can go and close my Access database and reopen it and go to that form again. I can scroll through, everything's encrypted, but if I wanted to take a look at one record, I can certainly do that. I can scroll to the second record and decrypt that one, and the rest of them stay encrypted. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. We're going to be looking at how to encrypt field data in Microsoft Access using a couple little plugins that I developed for you guys. I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thanks for joining once again on my channel on data engineering. In this episode, we go back to our Microsoft Access playlist, and we're going to talk about encryption. Now, lots of viewers have asked me about how they can get a little bit of encryption into their database, and actually it's kind of an important question because security is on everybody's mind these days, and there are many ways to do it, and today we're going to take a look at one of them. Now, today's episode is going to benefit from two little previous projects that I did, one of them which has a video on this channel. And what we're going to do is we're going to skip a bunch of the coding, and I'm just going to give you guys the exe files that you can use, as well as the configuration files. Plus, we're going to take one VBA procedure, and you can copy it from Notepad into your solution, and then you can use encryption starting from there. Let's get to it. Interested in more topics in this area? Make sure to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description. Be sure to stay until the end for more information about deployment. Many thanks to those of you who requested this topic. I can certainly get a sense that lots of people are looking for a good solution for encryption, and actually there are very few of them around. So I put this integration together for you guys. Now here's my folder that I have my Access Encrypt database in. It could be your solution, the same idea. And I've got a blank database there, and I'm just going to drag over, pretending to download the MacKenzie version 0.009, which is kind of a beta that is free for you guys if you want to try it out. And I've developed it in .NET, and you can see how to develop these exe files, especially the encrypt connection strings. I'll put the link below on when I actually created this this file for .NET, but you guys can use it as well. And MacKenzie, I just put that together, and I put together a config file, of course, that comes with this MacKenzie exe. We're going to be using that, as well as a text file with the MacKenzie VBA procedure in it, and you're just going to paste that into a new module so that you can use it. Now, if I drag Notepad over here and then I drag MacKenzie onto it, the exe config file, you can see that this is just an XML file. That's all it is, and it has the .NET runtime in it. It's a pretty old one, so you're going to be good to go there. And it's got MacKenzie password connection string in it, and there's the text of the password, my MacKenzie password. Make sure that you change this password. That is very, very important that you change this password. Put in a strong password. More than 20, 30 characters, 25 characters is a good length. Today I'm putting in a short one here. But you can put in a nice long one, and that will make the encryption stronger, and you can see how that works, especially with lots of different services that use encryption. They ask you to put in a longer or more random password, very common. Sometimes there's even a little gauge that'll show you how strong your password is, but we don't have that today, so put in a long one, and that's going to make it work great. Now, note that that is in clear text in this config file, and we are going to change that later, and we're going to use a special encryption procedure that's based on your Windows system that's going to encrypt the configuration file, but your app is still going to be able to use it, making it even more secure than just having the password in a file there. Next, we'll go ahead and we'll open our SmackEncrypt VBA function there, and we'll go ahead and copy the function. You don't have to copy the option, I think it's option explicit at the top there, something like that. Just copy the function, and then you can open your database here. This is a completely blank database, so you can do the same thing. We'll go to the create ribbon, and we're going to create a new module, and we'll just paste that in, Control V here, and that's going to give us our function. Now I was going to walk through building this function, but it's pretty straightforward. It's a function called encrypt or decrypt. You put in encrypt or decrypt as the string for the option, and then you put in whatever the value is that you want to encrypt or decrypt, and it's going to use those exe files that you saw there. And the important line there is the command line. That's going to be the location where your application resides with SmackEncrypt, and it's going to also have arguments on the end which are put on automatically. So all you have to fix here is just put in the correct path to your SmackEncrypt.exe, and that should work out just fine. And then Control S to save, and then you'll get the pop-up to save it, and I just put mod encrypt on there. And now we've got a little module that allows us to encrypt and decrypt strings. And you'll see that it uses the shell there. It's using the vbScript.shell, and it's creating a command line that includes the exe plus the arguments, including the value that we want to encrypt or decrypt, and then it goes through the output and it grabs the value that was returned, and then it just returns the value of the encrypted or decrypted string. Now there are many reasons of why I'm doing it this way with an exe and not using a DLL. I won't get into those right now. But you guys can ask in the comments if you have questions about that. This makes it nice and easy. It's just a little exe file. It sits alongside your system database there, or your front-end database for your application, and that's where everything happens, is in that folder. Now I'm going to drag our SmackEncrypt exe config file back on here. I'm just going to note again, notice that this password is out in clear text. And we are going to use it with clear text the first time that we use it here, and then I'm going to show you a really neat trick for converting that and encrypting that string as well. So in order to use our function, we're going to use the immediate window. If it's not showing, you can do Control G, and we'll go question mark encrypt or decrypt, and then we'll select the option to encrypt. And to test it out, we'll just put some value in. We'll say my sensitive data. We'll just put that in for fun, and with an exclamation mark on there, and then finish our function and hit enter, and we can see exactly what we get back. Now this is what encryption looks like, and this is triple DES or 3DES as implemented by Microsoft, and I will provide a link in the description to the Microsoft article on how to get this using .NET. Of course, I'm using .NET in the exe, and you're retrieving the value from Access here. But there's the value, that big string there. I'm going to copy that, and then if we want to decrypt that, we can put in encrypt or decrypt, and then decrypt, and then the value, and you can see that it converts the data back into the clear text that I wanted to see there. And that's exactly what we want to see. That's exactly how the encryption can work. If we didn't have the encryption key, so say the files were stolen from the computer or something like that, I would not be able to find the value for that, not without a some kind of a super powerful computer or something. And so there you go again. I created a longer string, and then I'm going to copy that as well, and you can see it created that big long gobbledygook there, and I'm going to paste that into the decrypt, and I hit enter, and you can see there we go. There's some other data that I want to encrypt. And so that's exactly what we want to see. And you can see that the encryption is done. It's quite strong encryption. And so the smackoccrypt.exe.config file is still a problem though, because we've got this file sitting in clear text on our desktop or the user's desktop. And who's to prevent somebody from just taking, when they copy files off of the computer, prevent them from taking that file and then installing it somewhere else, and then of course, using it to decrypt whatever values are in there. And so I'm going to double click on the encrypt connection strings. That's the second little exe that I put into the zip file, and all you need to do is type the name of the file in the same folder. In this case it's smackoccrypt.exe, and it returns that it is now true that the file is protected, and you can just hit enter again, and that little utility is done. It's done its work. And so now I can open Notepad and drag that smackoccrypt.exe on there, and now you can see that there's all this cipher data in here. It's encrypted. Nobody can see what the passphrase is, and nobody can get that passphrase unless they are logged into your computer. And so that is a very important thing. So if they steal the files off of your computer, they won't be able to decrypt it. If they watch your computer and take the values, they won't be able to decrypt it. The cipher value prevents them from getting the passphrase, and so that is super important. Now your Windows computer actually automatically knows how to handle all of this stuff, and so if I go back and I try the function again, even though we've encrypted the passphrase in the config file, I'll just delete all that extra stuff there. So now if I go back and I use it again, you can see that the passphrase is still being used even though it's encrypted. So I'll put in like my funky password here, and I'm gonna add some characters on the end just to make it semi-secure, and then I'll hit enter, and you can see that the encryption is still working even though that config file passphrase has been encrypted as well using the system keys. And so now we can encrypt and decrypt without having the passphrase exposed at all on your computer, and you can use this method to add some security to your database. And so if I decrypt it, you can see I get my funky password out, and we will do an episode on using passwords and logins and things like that, and that's exactly what we want to see. So there's our function. That's what we pasted in. It's working great. And now of course the next step is decrypting the config file, because you might want to move this onto another computer, and that cipher value is not going to work on another computer if you wanted to use the same one as an administrator, or if you wanted to change it for another computer. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click on that encrypt connection strings again, and we're going to enter the same file name again. All you have to do is enter the file name, and it will find it there, and then you can see now it is no longer protected, and we can go ahead and we can see if I open a notepad here and drag our smackoccrypt config file on there, you can see that this is a big password, and look at all that clear text there. We've got our password out in the open. And so so now you could move that to another computer with the files and use the same password to encrypt, or if you wanted that user to also be able to read on a shared database, or you can make them different if you want no other user for that particular file, particular records to be able to open it. You can create different scenarios, and so you can see that works. And So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a table. So let's create a table and create some data. So we're going to put an ID auto number in there. We'll call this sum field, and we'll make that into a short text, and then we'll put some sensitive data as another field, and then I think that should be enough for today. Now note that my field size is 255. If you're going to encrypt and keep the same value or the same field value but encrypted in the same field, you do need to make sure that you are aware that the encryption increases the length of the text, and so be aware of that. So you might want to have a field for the encrypted value that is a longer field or something like that. So there we go. I'm going to use the form wizard there. I'm going to go to the create tab and then the form wizard, and I'm just going to blast through the wizard here, creating a sample form that has our table with 3 fields on it. And there you go. So we've got some field, and then we've got some sensitive data just below that, and we can enter all kinds of information if we want to. The sum sensitive data field is the actual data field that I want to encrypt, and so I'll put that into the value as well there, and then I'll hit create new. We'll create a second record, and I'll say another record with sensitive data, and then in the description we can add some data in there, and that should be enough for us to get going. I'll put other data I want to encrypt, and that should be enough for now. And so now we have 2 records. You can see I can scroll backward and forward just like you would expect on any of your access forms. If I right click on the tab here, I can go to design view, and I'll close that navigation pane, and now what we can do is we can get to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up 2 buttons down here at the bottom, and I'll go ahead and use our controls, and I'll choose the button from the controls on the ribbon there, and I'll just draw or select the size that I want. You'll see the wizard pop up. You can go ahead and close that or cancel it, and we're going to go to the other tab first, just like we usually do, and we'll give this button a programmable name that makes sense to our code. We'll call it CMD Encrypt, and then we'll go ahead and give it a caption, and I'll put the ampersand encrypt, and that's going to allow me to use Alt-E for nice easy browsing. If I want to encrypt it very quickly using keyboard shortcut, I can go Alt-E, and then on the event tab I'm going to click the little ellipsis there. I'm going to double click on the code builder, and then I can go to the encryption. Now you can see all of our stuff from before is still there, all of our experimentation that we did, and you can see in the window drop down there, you can see that we're now working on the code behind for the form, and our original module is in there too. So there we go. We can we've got our CMD encrypt _ click. That's for the click event, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put our procedure in here. And so I'm gonna create a variable called str value for the value string. That's going to be the value that we want to encrypt, and we'll load that with the value of the field value on our form, and that's going to be me some sensitive data. That's the field that we want to encrypt. You can also put a control name in there, and you can put a control name or a field name. In this case I'm using a field name, and I'm going to concatenate that with an empty string, and that'll force any nulls to become an empty string. And so from there we can go ahead and we can create another string variable. I'll call that the encrypt string, and that will hold the encrypted value, and we'll set that equal to, of course, encrypt or decrypt, which is in our other module, and we'll put in encrypt and then the value. So we want to encrypt the value that we got from sensitive some sensitive data. And so now we can go ahead and we can say me some sensitive data equals str encrypt. Or you could do, if you wanted to leave it encrypted or something, you could put a pop-up there, but I'm just going to change the value of the field. So now I can go ahead, can look at the field in form view and click the encrypt button, and now you can see that has changed this into an unreadable mess of encrypted data. And so if I scroll forward in my form to the second record, you can see it's still visible. So this is very, very flexible. It's field level encryption, and so you can go ahead, you can scroll through. Now both of them are encrypted, and so that is really exactly what we want to see. Nobody's going to be able to read that or decrypt it without the passphrase that is in our config file. And so now I'll grab this button. I'm going to go Control C, Control V. So that's going to copy and paste that, and I'm just going to put that button right beside it. And of course, this button for our demonstration today I will call decrypt. And so we'll go CMD decrypt in our name for our button. That's going to give a nice name for the code to use. And then I'll leave the ampersand in there, and I'm going to put the decrypt in the name. So now I can go Alt D, and it'll decrypt the value that's in some sensitive data, the field called some sensitive data. Same thing as before, go to the event tab, click on the ellipsis, double click on the code builder, and it automatically creates our event for the click. And that's going to be very handy for us to use, so we can do the same thing. We can go, the value string and a decrypt string, and we'll set our value equal to an empty string and me exclamation some sensitive data, and that is going to give us the encrypted value into the value this time. And we'll set our str decrypt equal to the same function that we used before, encrypt or decrypt, except we'll put decrypt as the option, and we'll put the value in just like we did last time. And then we can set the value of me send some sensitive data equal to str decrypt, and that is all we need to do. Now we have the ability to encrypt or decrypt data, and that makes it very, very nice and secure. So if we worked on data and we hit encrypt on it and went home for the night, and somebody managed to steal files off the computer, they're never going to be able to read that without the passphrase, and they won't be able to get the passphrase because it's also encrypted. So here we go. There we can decrypt our values in our form when we open the form, and we can scroll through. So you can see 1 and 2, they're both decrypted now using the button. And I'll say, I'll create a third record here, another record, and we'll put some text value in here as well. And looks like this data needs protection, and that's gonna be another value that we could have in there. So we'll say encrypt to encrypt that to our triple DES, and then we can scroll back, and you can see the previous records are still decrypted, so we're hitting the encrypt button. And so we can do this all day long. We can go forward, we can encrypt or decrypt exactly whatever values we want. So there's a million ways that you could use this. We can close our Access database. We can reopen it after we encrypted the values. You can see when we reopen it, the encrypted values are still there, and that is exactly what we want to see. And I can go through and decrypt these if I want to. I can leave certain ones encrypted or whatever. This is one of the neat things about using this kind of encryption. And that is how you can encrypt field values and passwords for your Microsoft Access database.